Previously on Beyond the Veil. A mysterious letter from Elara's deceased friend Margaret pulled her back into the world of the supernatural. She returned to Ashwood, where shadows of the past linger, and where she faced the terrifying reality that the veil between the living and the dead is weakening. But the Watcher's warning was clear: this is just the beginning. The forces Elara is up against are more powerful than anything she has ever faced before. And now, they've found a way to cross into our world. The next day, Ashwood lay under a thick blanket of fog, its narrow streets eerily quiet. The town seemed to hold its breath, as if waiting for something terrible to happen. Elara stood at the edge of the cemetery, the events of the previous night still fresh in her mind. "I need answers," she whispered to herself, clutching Margaret's journal tightly. The cryptic notes about the Watcher and the veil haunted her thoughts. As she walked through the empty streets, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The fog swirled around her, making it difficult to see more than a few feet ahead. Suddenly, she heard a distant cry, a voice filled with fear and pain. She quickened her pace, following the sound through the maze of foggy alleys. Elara's journey led her to a small, unassuming house at the edge of town. The door was ajar, and inside, she could hear the faint murmur of a voice, unsteady, erratic. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. The air inside the house was thick with an oppressive energy. The living was in disarray, furniture overturned, papers scattered across the floor. In the center of the room stood a woman, her back to Elara, muttering to herself in a language that sounded ancient and harsh. Elara approached cautiously, her heart pounding in her chest. "Hello?" she called out softly. "Are you all right?" The woman turned to face her, and Elara gasped. The woman's eyes were wild, her face contorted in fear and anger. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, and her lips moved rapidly as she continued to speak in that strange tongue. "Help me," the woman croaked, her voice suddenly breaking into a plea. "It's inside me. I can't stop it." Elara realized with horror that the woman was possessed, taken over by a malevolent force that had crossed the veil. She had seen possessions before, but never like this. The darkness within the woman was ancient, powerful, and filled with rage. Elara knew she had to act quickly. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small, leather-bound book, an old exorcism manual passed down through generations of her family. The rituals contained within were dangerous and required precision, but she had no choice. "I need you to stay with me," Elara said firmly, flipping through the pages to find the right incantation. "I'm going to help you, but you need to fight it." The woman's body convulsed, her eyes rolling back as the entity inside her fought to maintain control. Elara began to chant the ancient words, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. As Elara's chant grew louder, the room seemed to darken. Shadows crept along the walls, and a cold wind blew through the house, extinguishing the candles one by one. The woman screamed, her voice a mixture of her own and something far more sinister. "You cannot banish me, mortal," the entity growled, using the woman's voice to speak. "She belongs to us now." Elara's heart raced, but she didn't stop. She poured all her energy into the ritual, focusing on the words that had been passed down to her. But as she continued, she felt the entity's power growing stronger, resisting her attempts to drive it out. Sweat poured down Elara's face as she struggled to maintain control of the ritual. The room was filled with the sound of the woman's screams, the entity's mocking laughter, and the howling wind. Elara could feel her strength waning, the darkness pressing in on her. "I need more time," she thought desperately. "I'm not strong enough to do this alone." Just as she feared she would lose the battle, the door burst open, and a figure appeared, a tall man with sharp features and an air of authority. He strode into the room, his eyes locked on the possessed woman. The man's presence was commanding, and Elara felt a surge of hope. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice barely audible over the chaos. "Father Benedict," the man replied, his voice calm and steady. "I'm here to help." Without another word, Father Benedict joined Elara in the ritual, his voice adding power to the incantation. Together, they chanted the ancient words, their voices merging into one. The entity inside the woman howled in fury, thrashing and fighting against the combined power of the exorcists. The air in the room crackled with energy as the ritual reached its peak. Father Benedict raised his hand, a cross held firmly in his grasp, and commanded the entity to leave the woman's body. "In the name of all that is holy, I banish you from this realm," he shouted. With a final, ear-piercing scream, the entity was torn from the woman's body, dissipating into the shadows. The room fell silent, the oppressive energy lifting as the candles flickered back to life. The woman collapsed to the floor, unconscious but free from the entity's grasp. Elara and Father Benedict knelt beside the woman, checking her pulse. She was alive, though weak, and would need time to recover from the ordeal. Elara felt a wave of relief, but also a deep sense of unease. The entity they had banished was gone, but its presence lingered in the back of her mind. "Thank you," Elara said, turning to Father Benedict. "I wouldn't have been able to save her without your help." "You did well, Elara," Father Benedict replied, his tone measured. "But this is only the beginning. The veil is weakening, and more will come. You must be prepared for what lies ahead." Elara nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. The forces they were up against were more powerful than she had ever imagined. And now, she had an ally in Father Benedict, someone who understood the dangers they faced. "I will be," she said, determination hardening her voice. "Whatever comes next, I'll be ready." As Elara left the house, the fog had begun to lift, revealing the quiet streets of Ashwood. But the town no longer felt like a place of refuge. The darkness was spreading, and she knew that this was only the beginning of a much larger battle. She looked down at Margaret's journal, the cryptic notes about the Watcher still unanswered. But now, she had another lead, Father Benedict. Together, they would uncover the truth and fight the forces threatening to tear the veil apart. Whatever is out there, Elara thought, her resolve stronger than ever, I'll find it. And I'll stop it. To be continued. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. The battle against the darkness is just beginning, and Elara needs all the help she can get. Join us next time as we delve deeper into the mysteries of the veil. Hit the notification